Hey, welcome back, everybody, to our next Living Hope, a weekly journey designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer, sharing the real-life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. With our host, we've said it before, we'll say it again, she knows the most, knows a lot, put it that way, about this subject, Roberta Luna. Welcome back.
Thank you, Paul. I feel like I learn something every time. So
I do too. It's amazing to me how many shows we've done now here, and I keep finding new angles to the story or new bits of the story that we haven't heard today to celebrate National
National Cancer Survivor Month.
You have another survivor, a fellow survivor.
Yes, I do.
Here.
It's an honor. The month is used to honor cancer survivors, offer hope to the newly diagnosed, and support their families and engage the community. So I'm very happy to start off today with Robert Panacci, and I'm not sure I did that right.
We practice that so much, you got it perfect. Panacci.
There you go. I was thinking of, was it Mario Brothers or something? They might have said it. But thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to see you, and you look great. That's a good thing, too. And I know some of you may not be able to see him at some point in time, but take my word for it, it looks really well, and happy to see that. So thank you for joining us. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be awesome.
Yeah, my name is Robert, however you want to call me. I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2019, late 2019. I had started feeling some strange pains in my side and my back and got over my own stubbornness, which is difficult for guys in their 50s. They want to try and still be tough and all that. But this one got me to the doctor. They did a couple tests, found a shadow on my pancreas. They sent me immediately to a surgeon, cancer surgeon, and an oncologist, where they confirmed, I had about almost 4 centimeter mass on the head of my pancreas. And they told me at that point that I had about a year to live. And it was actually the most devastating thing I had ever heard. And immediately thought that wasn't acceptable. We needed to get a second opinion. We went to go talk to the Mayo Clinic and doctors there. And they said, it's going to be tough. We're going to put you through some tough chemo, some tough radiation. If we can shrink the tumor, we'll get you to surgery. And if we can get you to surgery, then we can increase the odds of a longer life. And that sounded much better to me than a year to live. I said, well, let's just get started and let's do it. And we got on the protocol, started doing the chemo around November of 2019, went through a number of rounds of that. Not a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Radiation, which strangely enough, I thought hurt more than the chemo. Chemo made me feel terrible, but the radiation hurt more. And was lucky enough that when they looked at it, basically through regular screenings, they said it had shrunk enough we can go for surgery. And the most important thing was that it had moved away. It had started just when we first found it. It had started to touch the main artery down my abdomen, and they were worried about it wrapping around. They got it to shrink away from that, which made surgery less of a risk. Did surgery, about 8-9 hours under there. And the surgeon reported after that he was pretty confident they had gotten all the cells. It was a very long process, but they were confident, and it was wait and see. And we're now in 2024. All the wait and see every scan that I've had, and I usually get scanned every 3 to 4 months. After the next one, if it goes as usual or as it has been going, we'll switch to 6 months. But every scan has shown no reoccurrence, so I'm just happy to be here.
We're really happy to have you here as well. And sitting there and hearing the doctor tell you just have a year, what went through your mind? I remember when the doctor told me, go home, put your house in order. You have 3 to 6 months, but let's start chemo. Maybe we can buy you a little extra time. Just remembering after hearing that, it sounded like the Charlie Brown movie where the teacher's talking and all you hear is blah, blah, blah. You don't hear, nothing really sinks in. Did you have that same kind of feeling, or what was going through your mind when the doctor said that to you?
It was, like I said, it was devastating. It was like a gut punch that I had never felt before. And once I literally, I was standing when she had walked into the room and literally just sank to the ground and thought, what is going on? My initial thought was the fear. And then as we had left that surgeon's office, she had sent us to go see an oncologist immediately. I just started to go into great denial. I said, this isn't happening. This is a mistake. Something's wrong. But at the same time, that thought of, get your house in order was going through my head. And at first I didn't think I was afraid of death. But then I realized it wasn't that I was afraid, it was I was deathly afraid of death. I didn't want to die. I had grown children. My oldest at the time was early 20s. My youngest was just starting, I believe, was just starting high school. Sorry, things get foggy in the moment.
Chemo brain.
Yeah, they were all young adults. And as a parent, like the most important times of their lives, they're starting to face the really big challenges. And I said, I can't miss that. I can't leave my wife a widow. I don't want to leave my parents. I don't want to have my parents bury a child. And this is not happening. And got into great denial. And we had spoken earlier about kind of the language that you use when you're talking to people who are facing adversity, and the difference between you have a year to live and someone saying, here's some things we can do, which were the same protocols that the previous doctor had said. Here's some things we can do, and if we can get through that successfully, then we can buy more time. So I immediately switched to 1 day at a time brain. It was almost like, okay, get through today, get through tomorrow, get through this step, and at least you're buying yourself a chance. That is what totally occupied my mind for about the next 12 months.
Yeah, you have to find that something to get you through it, because it is important. And I know you said a fear of death, and for me, I'm not sure it was really a fear of death, but what it was, like you spoke about, the fear of leaving your family, the fear of both my mom was still alive, and thinking, having her to have to bury a child. We don't look at that. It's like parents shouldn't have to bury their children. It's supposed to be the other way around, correct? And even as difficult as that is, and I had 2 sons as well, and my husband. And how did you tell your family? To me, that was one of the most difficult things.
My wife had come with me when I'd done the ultrasound the day before with my doctor. So my wife had come when she had said, come into the office right away. My wife had come with me. And after we'd heard the first set of news, we were driving again to the other oncologist, from the surgeon to the oncologist. And we stopped. We had to stop the car, pulled into a parking lot, cried a lot, composed ourselves together. And we asked all the kids, and we were lucky because they were all available at the time. So let's just get home. Everybody got home. We got some stuff to talk about. They met us at home. We sat down, and I explained what was going on. There was a lot of emotion. It was everybody just the news. They knew exactly what I was saying, or what their perception of what I was saying. And I said, look, we're going to take this 1 day at a time. You guys have school, you have your part-time jobs, whatever. You're going to do what you need to do on a daily basis, right? I'll take care of what I need to do. And when I need your help, that's what I want you to focus on. Otherwise, you need to be focused on getting your foundations in place, right? I don't know. My mind, I was saying, I didn't know how much longer I was going to be here, but they weren't facing the same fate. So they didn't need to stop their lives because they had important things going on, like I said, with school, and they had jobs, etc. But we just sat down and had an open conversation about it.
How did they take it? Were they accepting of it? Were they angry of it? How did they deal with it?
I think everyone had their own way. I have a blended family, and I've got 4 beautiful kids, each one of them with their own personalities, and everybody took it in their own way. But there was definitely a devastation feeling in the room. And I'm hoping, and I, as I look back and reflect on that time, that kind of my being a bit rough, right? Saying, look, nothing changes. You're going to continue going to school. You're going to continue doing your jobs. You're going to do whatever. I'm hoping that sort of grounded everybody a little bit and at least got them on that foot. But like I said, they weren't kids. Hearing pancreatic cancer, for most people, your initial assumption is, yeah, that's it. And I didn't want that there. I said, I'm going to do everything I can. And you guys are just going to continue and do whatever you have to do. And like I said, when we need each other as a family, we'll come back as a family and do that. And in the meantime, it's business. It was rough. It was a rough afternoon.
Were they able to, because I know you said in the blog I read that you wanted to, like you said, continue with the normal life as much as possible. Was everybody able to do that?
For the most part, yeah. Yeah, I think like any family, we have our challenges, but they're all good kids and we're all pretty strong. My wife's a strong woman. I try and be as strong as I can. And I think there was probably a lot of inner thoughts. There's a lot of discussions that happened while they were sitting with me in chemo, and a lot of discussions afterwards. And they were all trying to process. I think everybody did a great job in terms of how it came out, but I know they all fought their own battles along the way.
And I know you had a little different circumstance too with yours, is that your father-in-law was also ill at the same time. Is that correct?
I actually noticed my pain when we were sitting with him. He was admitted to hospital in that October of 2019, and he was having issues with his kidney. We were struggling through that. My wife, she didn't have her mother. Her mother had already passed. So her dad was her last, and she had lost her grandma. So it was her last thing. And it was tough because he was struggling a little bit and we were focused on that. And as I was going through chemo, he actually had gone from, pretty good to worse. In the hospital, he'd had surgery, and then he had started when they
Dialysis?
dialysis.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
He had started dialysis, and the dialysis wasn't going well. And he tried, and my wife was going through that. She had her ill father, she had me, and just trying to juggle it all. And he ended up passing in January of 2022, just because of all the complications of what was going on.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's a difficult time to go through everything. It's like when it rains, it pours, right?
Perfect storm.
I know, and not to put you on the spot or anything, I want to talk a little bit about chemo brain because a lot of people don't understand it, don't realize it, and don't think it really exists. I had for the longest time doctors telling me, no, that doesn't exist. It's not true. And then finally, I think it was Cure Magazine wrote an article, and when they wrote that article, I took that and I showed that to my doctor, and I said, this is what, and I have these claims 7 years from your last chemo, so I'm still using chemo brain because my last chemo was in 2018. So I'm going to use it as long as I can. Getting back to that, do you see that a lot? And a lot of times for me too, it wasn't so much just that, it was finding the right word that I wanted to say. Is that something that you experience as well, as the forgetfulness or finding the right word sometimes?
Very much. We actually have a friend who had gone through chemo just recently because of breast cancer, and she felt the effects. I felt it immediately. I wouldn't say maybe not immediately, but when I noticed it immediately. I'm an avid reader. That was one of the things that got me through my therapy was I was just reading a lot of books. I was trying to write down and journal as much as possible. But I did notice I was getting cognitively a lot slower. And I'd even asked my wife, and I said, she goes, yeah, it's like you walk into a room and why did you go in there?
Right.
Or you'd read the same page 5 times or struggle to find the words when you think it shouldn't be that hard. And I was just at lunch with a friend the other day, and I said, that's aside from just feeling good in general, one of the things I've noticed is that cognitively, I'm much further along than I was and when I was going through chemo, when I was going through radiation. And now there's some that might disagree, but I feel much more cognitively alert than I did during that time. It is a real thing. I know I felt it.
Yeah, I was concerned there for a while because I was thinking maybe pre-Alzheimer's or something, because like you said, I'd walk in a room and forget why I was there, or I'd put things in the weirdest places that they didn't belong. I found my husband's work socks in the freezer one day, just little things that it just couldn't, and I was concerned. And finally somebody did mention chemo brain, but then when I talked to my doctors about it, they were just like, that doesn't exist. When the article came out, trust me, I showed that to them and made sure they understand that it does. And so they've changed their thought about it a little bit. But have you made any concessions? How do you get through those moments? Are they getting any better? And do you find, like they were telling me, do word searches or certain things to help with memory?
Yeah, I'm not a big puzzle guy. My wife's more a puzzle guy. I actually have made a conscious effort to increase the amount that I read. That I think helps me more than anything. I think it's important to keep focused, right? Even before cancer, I always had a little trouble focusing. People would argue I had a little bit of ADHD, but I think it's to be in the moment as much as possible and just stop yourself every once in a while and say, okay, you're here. This is what you're doing. This is where you're going to focus, and use that sort of centering process to bring everything back together. And that usually clears it up.
Yeah, we've gotten to where my friends know I have my own vocabulary now, and we've just make a joke about it and just move on. But yeah, it's just something that really is real. So just for people to understand that if you have it, it's okay. It's part of it, and hopefully it does get better, and there's ways we can do it. But I did want to get back to the Whipple. You did have the Whipple, correct?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
How did you prepare for that mentally and physically? Because it's not an easy surgery to go through, and we've had people that have come on and talked about it. So how did you prepare for that?
I was blessed with a surgeon who was just straightforward and honest with me right from the very beginning. Dr. Adair Moss, who is just a fantastic guy. He exuded a lot of confidence, but also kept it very real when he spoke about it, diagrammed out what he thought he was going to do, made it clear that he really wouldn't know all the facts until he actually got inside, because the process itself that he had spoken through was that in an effort to save as much of the pancreas as possible, they were just going to sort of do some micro shavings and stuff and keep testing until they didn't find any more cells. So preparing for me, I didn't do so much preparation for it as I did trusting in the process and trusting in the doctor. What I didn't prepare for is everything that came after. Tube down the throat and the tubes out the sides of your abdomen. All, like I said, I was in the hospital. Surgery was about 8-9 hours. I was in the hospital about 9 days. It was after you get out, dealing with the lethargy, dealing with the sort of having to take the supplements before you, or the supplements before you eat and all. That's, some days I'm still trying to figure that out. And you prepare for that and you say, you should only eat this and you should only do this and et cetera, et cetera. But it happens on the fly for me. I'm not a person who's going to be follow one plan, right? I can't say this is what I'm going to eat Monday. This is what I'm going to eat. You make a lot of concessions, but understanding how I react and the things I do, that's the way that I prepare going forward. But the process itself, I just said, look, nothing I can do about it. Do I feel good about the doctor? He was great. He was great. And I put my trust in him and God and said, go forward.
That's good. And I think that's a good way to handle it because, like you say, and everybody is different. And I'm assuming you were talking about pancreatic enzymes when you were talking about something.
Yeah, sorry,
no, it's, and it is. And I didn't have surgery. Mine is inoperable, but I'm on the enzymes and trying to figure it out, even trying to get the nutritionist and everybody to help you figure it out. It was really very difficult. You just do the best you can. Like you said, I'm not a good planner either. It's a spur of the moment kind of thing. So
I think the key thing for me is that as long as, and we love to do home cooking. I love to cook myself. And if I stick to fresh foods and, home cooked stuff, that usually works out a lot better. I don't do well with processed or even eating out sometimes. And then one of the other things that I think, when we go back to trusting in the process, one of the other things that can happen is you start over-reading and you start over-researching the things and there's so many things you read on the internet, and it's great because there's a ton of information, but it can get confusing and it can lead you in a bunch of different ways. So sometimes you just have to say, stop. There's someone telling me what's going to happen. I've got to trust that they know what they're doing. So just go with it.
It's funny you mentioned your wife doing the research. In your blog, you mentioned that she was really highly skilled at research. And so you both turned to the internet for information. Did this research impact your treatment decisions? And what advice could you give to others? Because I know basically I usually tell people, please don't go and Google pancreatic cancer. But it sounds like it worked for you. So what are some...
Actually, I asked her to stop. Before we'd gotten the diagnosis, sort of the treatment plan in place. The one thing is that once the diagnosis came through that I'd had a year, that's when she immediately got in and we got an appointment at Mayo and went forward. But it caused so much worry in those first few days, waiting in between all the appointments, that I stopped looking. And I can't stop her from looking. That's just who she is. And if anything, it just reinforced the fact that we were doing the right treatments, like the things that she was reading and some of the things that she had found coincided well with what the doctors were saying. That felt comfortable, right? But otherwise, someone tells you have pancreatic cancer, you go up and look and say, oh, it's got a 2% survival rate. It's not 2%, but that's, the first thing that pops up on Google. And the next thing you're in despair. It's just a bad plan. For me, it's a bad plan.
Yeah, and I have to agree because I remember Googling after my dad was diagnosed and it was just horrible. But with the 5-year survival rate of only 13%, how do you manage to stay hopeful and motivated?
I try not to set a time aside for worrying about it. I always get a couple of weeks before my scans is usually when it starts. It's almost like a flip switches, and it's like, oh, I got that scan in 2 weeks. What's that pain? And what's that feeling over here? And so it creeps in and out before those scan periods. But other than that, I've always said there's still so many things to do. We just had our first grandchild in January.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And the joy of that, the joy of seeing the kids grow and flourish and start to do their own things, like finishing their college courses or getting new jobs, anything, right? Watching my wife. We just went on family vacation We haven't done a family, and we were missing my daughter with the grandchild. She couldn't join us, but we'd had the kids on vacation, and we just really enjoyed it. And I think the most important thing is to try and stay as in the moment as possible. I'll let it creep in. Like, I don't know if I have a choice, but I'll let it creep in when it comes to time for checkup time.
Yeah.
But sometimes that denial is a good thing. And it's hard not to be reminded, like people you haven't seen in a bit, say, how are you feeling? How are you doing? I'm great. I'm good. I don't want to think about it. And it was only this year that I'd made a decision to give some effort to PanCAN, the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, because I said, you can't deny it any longer. You are a survivor. People need to know that there are good outcomes, and the people around them need to know there are good outcomes. And I honestly believe that hope and positivity and right mindset can extend that as much as whatever's possible.
Did you also include like any meditation, prayer, herbal remedies, or alternative medicines at all?
So my diet, I like to include a lot of antioxidants in my diet. I think that's the only thing that I do physically. But I do like to meditate. I like to breathing exercises. I wake up very early in the mornings, and that offers me an hour, sometimes 2 hours of quiet time before the day begins, where I just, wherever I can, I go and sit outside, breathe, say a couple prayers, and just try and ground myself again, right? If I had a bad day the day before, what are you happy about? What are you positive about? If I know that I'm going into a rough week, how are you going to make this better? How can you keep Yeah, I think meditation is very important. I think that also helps you stay in the moment. And I think realizing some days that not every day is going to be a good day. You're human. You're going to get angry and you're going to get frustrated and things like that. But don't give it that much time, because you don't know how much time you have, and you just try and snap yourself out of it. I do get into good moods faster now after a bad mood.
Yeah, we learn, right?
Yeah. I don't brood as long as I used to.
That sounds like really good advice, and I don't know if you have, before we leave, any other words of wisdom to share with other survivors?
I don't know what words of wisdom. I think it goes back to how we started out, what we were talking at the beginning. The words that you use, whether you're going through it or whether you know someone's going through it, the thoughts that you think, to be as focused on as much positive as possible. And it's not that positivity fixes everything. It's changing your mindset to say, look at it differently, right? Look at it as an opportunity. I heard someone say the other day that you have to embrace the thing that you didn't want to happen, because somehow it made you grow, right? And to me, being diagnosed with this was horrible, but it's opened my eyes to so many other things. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I have my good days and my bad days, but I always hope to have more good days than bad days. And when your mindset is there, I think it stops you from hurting your body with stress and other things.
Thank you. And like I said, there's so much more I want to talk about with you, but we'll just have to have you come on a couple more times and just get it all out there. But I really appreciate you taking time from your vacation. We really do appreciate it. So thank you for doing this. Cancer
You let me know anytime you want.
Okay, thank you. Cancer cannot cripple love. It cannot shatter hope. It cannot conquer the spirit. Today's Living Hope is dedicated to a thriving 5-year pancreatic cancer survivor, Linda Fleming. Thank you.
There you have it. More inspirational, educational, real stories of people really dealing with this deadly disease. And if you've got a story you'd like to share, please contact us here at the station, OC Talk Radio. And as always, if you or anyone you know needs help now and their journey, just contact Patient Services at 877-2-PANCAN. That's 877-2, and then PANCAN for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. For the OC Talk Radio Network, I'm Paul Roberts, thanking you for joining us, hoping you'll share this inspirational story with others, and most importantly, to keep coming back as we continue to explore this journey we call Living Hope. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio, streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.